Hello everybody, this is Accurate Dryheart, and do I have a theory for you? A FNAF theory, because of course I'm throwing my hat in that ring. Anyway, I've been watching a lot of theories as of late, and one of the hot button subjects is how Secret of the Mimic, especially the trailer that they released, might actually point towards TalesGames theory, or, if you're listening to some of the other videos, point toward TalesGames theory being false. Now, what is TalesGames theory? That is the idea that the Tales from the Pizzaplex stories are canon to the mainline games, particularly the Security Breach games and all the stuff going forward from Steel Wool, which is not as crazy of an idea as it might seem, despite the loose canonicity of some of the book series. One particular data point on this is that the Tales from the Pizzaplex stories, the first book was released July 19, 2022, whereas Security Breach was released December 16th, 2021. Now, you might be like, oh, that's months apart. But this is game dev and story writing. That doesn't just happen in a month. These are things that have been going for years. And during all that time, there is one person in charge of all of this lore stuff in the background. I don't know how much control Scott has over the games in particular, or the stories, or anything, but he definitely still has a lot of control over the actual lore, which is what's important for this. The idea that Tales from the Pizzaplex and Security Breach were meant to have interweaving lore, which, from a business perspective, is a very good thing, because then you can be like, oh, you like the game? How about you read the stories? Oh, you like the stories? Well, here's a game. Now, a particular video that I watched recently that's driven me down this path was ID's Fantasy's recent video, Secret of the Mimic Solved the Biggest FNAF Debate, and Not How You Think, FNAF Theory. The idea there is that she goes through, explains this TalesGames theory stuff, so if you want a better and more in-depth, I'll have a link to that down below. In fact, just go watch in general if this kind of thing interests you. However, she then points out a bunch of things where, oh hey, these do not match. This is not the same universe. From the various things that happen in the Secret of the Mimic trailer, which is being used to determine whether the stories are canon or not. Because the game looks to be basically telling the story of the Mimic. And when I say story, I do not mean the background of the Mimic, though it is doing that. I mean the literal story Mimic from the Tales from the Pizzaplex series. And yeah, she points out a bunch of stuff. The big ones that really got me was, first of all, the fact that in the trailer, Edwin is a contractor, which would be strange for Pizzaplex to go and lie about. Like, why would Fazbear lie whether he was a contractor or just, like, happened to work on things for them and stuff? It's like, that's not needed. The other one is the warehouse. In the book, it's all broken down with old lace machines and all that kind of stuff. Basically, Edwin, the person that built the Mimic, Edwin Murray, his business failed. He was making, I think it was automatic vacuum cleaners, and it just did not succeed at all. And so, in the end, Fazbear ends up getting everything after events happen, which, given the game we're talking about, you probably have a bit of an idea about what events means. However, once we look at the trailer for Secret of the Mimic, we find a very different sort of warehouse. It's not just some kind of warehouse that Edwin barely managed to afford, such that he didn't even have a house of his own, was instead living there. It is a warehouse that, while yes, it does look abandoned, it is for an actual successful business. It isn't like a lace warehouse that got semi-converted to work on various Fazbear stuff. No. This is animatronics and all kinds of stuff for that all over the place. A real proper factory. So with that, you might be like, oh yeah, I can totally see why TalesGames theory isn't a thing. However, I'm going to go back to a certain theory posited by MatPat in the past. Something from the dark, dark history of the past. What's in the box? In fact, here's the box right here. Let's take a look. Oh, that's where he went. Well, I'm just going to close that, and we'll ignore that for now. The more important thing is, as a certain someone theorized, what has been in the box hasn't always stayed the same. In various scripts for this, I've called it a 4D puzzle. And I'm calling it that again, with the basic idea being, it's not that it's stupidly complex. It's that it's a puzzle that as time goes on, the answer changes. What would have been in the box to start with wasn't what it was in the middle, and it certainly isn't what's in it now. And we probably won't ever find out what's actually in it, because it's been depreciated. But it does show us something important about Scott and how he is dealing with the Five Nights at Freddy's lore. Mainly, it's more of a living lore. He doesn't have some sort of book somewhere where all the events are just sectioned out. This happened here and here and here, and this is what it did, and this is what else happening. As the games were developed, as things have happened, as people have guessed and theorized and everything, the lore has changed with it. Sometimes in big ways, sometimes just minor little things. And in fact, he loves doing stuff where it's like, oh, they theorized this, but that's not really what I meant. So let's do this next game and have a little thing where it's like, you were wrong, here's what it actually is. And that's been really helpful for the various theorists that are just working away at it, which apparently now I'm part of. So, why am I talking about that? The box is an old theory, which technically still important since we don't know what's in the box. However, depreciated. And not useful for the modern lore, especially security breach and all the steel wool stuff, because they're not a new canon, but they're a new start. However, Scott still has his hands in the lore. So the way he does the lore is still important. And Tales from the Pizzaplex and Security Breach were being developed at the same time frame. And in the same time frame, Scott would have been dealing with the lore of both of them. And I think Tales game theory is, as of this moment, as I'm recording this, true. The Tales from the Pizzaplex, maybe not all the books, but the general scope of it was meant to be canon with the mainline games. But it will not be canon come Secret of the Mimic. What was in the box will change. My assumption, my guess, my theory is that how it went down in Tales from the Pizzaplex, the Mimic story, was how Scott saw it at the time. However, with the development of Security Breach, with the reception of Security Breach in the following games, how people reacted to it, how it was doing, what people theorized, Scott realized the story he was telling wasn't quite what he wanted. And just like how, way back when, we had the theory, the dream theory, we had Matt Pat saying, oh, this is all a dream. You're gonna wake up and it wasn't real. And that's what the box was, waking up from a dream. There wasn't anything in it. However, just like no one would have accepted the dream theory back then, it had become too big. The Mimic can't be just the Mimic anymore. The Mimic is too big in FNAF. Edwin Murray, the creator of the Mimic, he can't just be some down-on-his-luck guy who happened to get lucky once and create some miraculous thing just because he wanted to watch over his son, but not actually. Edwin has to be something more. The Mimic has to be something more. We can't just wake up from a dream and be like, oh, that's quirky. So just like what Scott Cawthorn did with the box, Secret of Mimic is doing to Tales game theory. Tales game theory was correct. The lore from Tales from the Pizzaplex was not just some side canon that we can sort of use to guess at some of the stuff happening in Security Breach. It was the lore. It was the canon. But the Mimic is too big now. Edwin Murray is now just as important as all the other big names because he created the new Freddy. He created the Mimic. So yes, I do believe Tales game theory was true. It isn't anymore. As much as I like it, we'll have to set that toy aside, put it with all the other separate canons. Because as of Secret of the Mimic, we're going down a new road. What's in the box has changed, and I'm excited to find out what's there this time. Anyway, please go down to comments and tell me what you think about my theory I've got born here. Also, the like button seems a little lonely. How about you give it some love? Subscribe if that's your kind of thing, and the bell is always looking to be hit. This is Accurate Dragonheart, and I'm signing off.